What is going on, people? I am Dylan Denmark on this Friday morning, December 5th. Hope everybody's had a good week. Haven't had a chance to respond and react to the John Sumrall press conference that happened earlier this week. A lot of things have happened in the world of college football on the Gators front. You've got a defensive coordinator. You've got an offensive coordinator. You've got early signing day. Billy Napier, the GOAT. Billy Napier found a job, a head coaching job at James Madison. Everybody give a round of applause. We applaud him. One thing is for certain, James Madison better have 12 tight ends on the roster. Every Gator fan can tell you, you better have tight ends on tight ends on tight ends because he will use them, all of them. Even if like 7 of them get hurt, they will be used because that's all we saw from Gator Nation, from Tony Livingston to Hayden Hansen. Receivers on the outside, doesn't matter. No. We're going to run the football. So round of applause. We are excited that Billy Napier is at James Madison. I mean, we wish him well, right? We wish him well. I'm partly kidding. But we have, and they play tonight, actually. They have a conference championship. But the big news of the day, the Florida Gators get their offensive coordinator, Buster Faulkner, from Georgia Tech. Before we start the show, remember to like and subscribe to the channel. I saw a stat on the YouTube analytics. There's like 70% of you guys that watch that aren't subscribed. So make sure we're subscribing. We've had about a little over 100 subscribers in the last month. Let's continue to build on that, please. I think we're almost at 560. Let's try to get to 1,000 within the next I'll say 2 months. Is that doable? 2 months to get to 1,000 subscribers. Okay. The Gators get Buster Faulkner. Who is he? He was at Georgia Tech. He was the offensive play caller since 2023. And he's changed a lot at Georgia Tech. In 2022, the year before he got there, Georgia Tech was 124th in scoring in the country. In 2023, his first year, he automatically flipped it to 42nd. This past season, 2025, Georgia Tech scored 30 points per game. That was 18th best in the country. If you don't know how bad Florida was, they were 118th. So Georgia Tech was the 18th best team, points per game. Florida was the 118th best team in the country in scoring. The great Florida offense that featured 2 tight ends a game, that featured Jaden Ball getting the ball 5 times against LSU in the first half, getting about 30 yards of offense against Miami in the first half, getting 1 first down in the first half against Miami. Seems like a lot of things are going to change. And we'll get to, the personnel and how he's going to use these guys, hopefully for the Florida Gators in the near future. And what's surprising was this offer that Florida gave him. Georgia Tech was willing to match it and pay him to be one of the top ACC coordinators in the conference, and he still took the Florida job. So it feels like he took this job knowing, okay, I get to be at a bigger program. I get to be in the SEC, and if I do well, I should be getting a head coaching job at a Power 4 school within the next 2, 3, maybe 4 years. That looks like that's what's going to happen. So a really good hire. If you listen to a lot of people, I know David Pollack has had rave reviews. I've listened to a couple people that cover Georgia Tech. I just went on YouTube last night. I just typed in Buster Faulkner. Boom. Instead of going Google and reading stuff like I did, I went on YouTube and saw a couple of people responding to it. They're like, yeah, this is a big loss. And Buster Faulkner was one of the top OCs in the country. He had just signed an extension too, for 2 years for $3 million in the summer. I believe it was in July, and he was highly sought after. And one of the main questions was, after John Sumrall got the job Sunday afternoon, was, okay, who's the OC? Sumrall's a defensive guy. The defense you really don't worry about. Yes, you have a DC. You got the DC from Kentucky, but we all know how this works. Whatever side your head coach is on, that person runs that side of the ball usually. Now, someone's going to get the nod to be the play caller. Novel concept, with Napier, you had two offensive coordinators. It's a collaborative effort. Defense, couple of years ago. Yeah, we have two guys. Yeah, it's a collaborative effort. That's not how football works. Football's been played for over 100 years. One guy calls the plays. He calls the shots. One guy makes the game plan on Sunday. And then you tell your staff, your side of the ball, your position coaches, okay, this is how I want practice to run this week because this is how I want to attack this team for who we play with on Saturday. Essentially how it works. And it was so frustrating that Napier could not name a coordinator and say, this guy is calling the shots. So it feels like we don't have to worry about that no more. I guess the next thing on tap for Sumrall is who's a special teams coordinator. We'll wait and see. Hopefully he's not a game changer. Let's start there and we can roll from there. The Sumrall reaction to the press conference that happened Monday afternoon. He won the press conference. Essentially, he got in a room with a couple of, it seems like it was with, Florida PR, which for the people that don't know what PR is it's your brand. When something bad happens, you'll see a PR statement or, if I say like an image, or something, you think of something automatically. When you think of the Gators, you think of, with school, you think of a top 10 education. That's their brand right now. And so the Florida PR and Spurrier and Urban Meyer and Danny Warfel that we've later found out, it feels like they all sat him together like, all right, look, Florida fans wanted Lane Kiffin. They're pissed. They want an offensive guy, and they want to score a lot of points because that's what they're accustomed to, and that's what they've done in the 90s with Spurrier and with Urban Meyer. And he knew that. So, that was one of the first things he said. We're going to score. We're going to score at a high level and have a fireworks show, yada, yada, yada. Most of you have seen that and did a good job. He's a defensive guy. He's more of a rah-rah guy, like most defensive coaches are. I don't know too many defensive coaches at any level of football that are humble other than Todd Bowles, who coaches for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Most defensive coaches are in your face and, they're rah-rah and they're motivational guys. And it seems like that's what you're getting from John Sumrall. And if you didn't see Spurrier after the Sumrall press conference, he reacted and he was asked about what do you like from the hire. And usually when you get a question like this, and it doesn't have to do with football, it has to do with, your job, if you're working with someone new or if you're an employer, you hire a new employee and you get asked the question, how do you like this new person that's on your staff? Or how is this person? What do you like about him? Usually that answer is going to be everything that the previous person didn't do. And Spurrier, the head ball coach, responded with, I like his attitude. Teams take on the characteristics and the attitude of their coaches. And I can tell you, this guy hates losing. He hates losing. So in other words, Billy Napier was content with losing. He was fine with it. It didn't really bother him, at least it felt like. And there was no energy. He was very ho-hum. I mean, this guy had one of the most boring press conferences week after week after week. And Sumrall had a great press conference Monday. Doesn't mean anything? No. I mean, this guy could have farted and accidentally pooped his pants, and I wouldn't have cared. And the only thing I would have responded with, okay, but is he going to win games in Saturday, in September, in October, and in November? That's the only thing that matters. And as of right now, he's doing a lot of good things. Now, he's still going to coach his team tonight. Tulane's playing North Texas in their conference championship. North Texas is favored by 2.5. I saw a stat that on Yahoo that a lot of money is coming in on North Texas minus 2.5, and the over under 66.5. So expect a lot of points in that game for the Gator fans if you're going to watch that game tonight. We'll see. We'll see. I will be peeking at that. There was also an article that was written this morning by Ross Dellinger, who covers the sport of college football. he wrote a pretty good article on John Sumrall and, how the week's been since he took the job Sunday to the press conference on Monday to, early signing day on Wednesday that we'll talk about in a second, and still covering the team and coaching the team at Tulane, getting them ready for the game tonight. He says he's been running on 4 hours of sleep, a lot of caffeine, a lot of energy drinks, a lot of coffee. But one of the quotes that he said in there was, I'm not scared. There's a lot that scares me, maybe rattlesnakes. Coach, I don't know if you know, in Florida, there is a lot of snakes. Don't be anywhere near bodies of water. Don't get a house near a retention pond or a lake because, that might not be good for you. Just food for thought. Scared of snakes, but I'm apologetically myself. I'm going to be who I am. That job won't change me. So he's been a defensive guy. He was at Troy for 2 years before he went to Tulane for 2 years. And now you get John Sumrall. So it seems like things are moving in the right direction. And Florida, I mean, they need to take a tip of the cap from a PR standpoint, from a branding standpoint of where fans were Sunday morning when Sumrall took the job to now Friday afternoon. And fans have completely flipped their mind. It was, damn it, we're getting Billy Napier 2.0. Scott Strickland's going back to his roots at Louisiana. We're getting another G5 guy. And, at the same time, Alex Golesh, who Florida fans are aware of because USF just beat you, and you've played USF twice in the last couple of years. It seemed like he was the better hire in that moment on Sunday morning to now, all of a sudden, this seems like a pretty good hire. The more you read, the more you see. It's all talk, and nothing really matters. Florida was still able to retain a lot of their their early signing day commits. I think one guy's decommitted, but you still have a top 15 signing class from early signing day, which wraps up today. It started Wednesday. You could have signed yesterday and today. After that, it's your attention's going to turn to roster retention. How many of these guys are going to stay? How many of these guys are going to hit the portal? And we're going to know that within the next couple of weeks. First time joining the cast. I wish you could look at the other camera. I'm more consistently considering that's right. Yeah, I have my monitors here, but I have my cameras here, and I have my notes right here in front of me. That's why I'm kind of a scatterbrain all over the place. But I know YouTube. The camera's right here, but my notes are here. Also, what was another something that happened this morning? Florida State, they dismissed their defensive backs coach, Pat Surtain Sr. Pat Surtain Jr. is the defensive back that played at Alabama, who's now playing for the Broncos. Pretty good corner. Senior was the coach at American Heritage, won a couple of state titles, well, more than a couple. He won 3 within recent memory, and then took the job at Florida State. He gets dismissed, and I wonder what the rest of the staff is going to look like. Bam Hardman, I haven't seen any official news. A former Gator that played for the Gators in '99, played for Spurrier, and then 1 year with Ron Zook, played a couple years in the NFL, spent 9 years coaching for Troy, and then the last 2 years with Tulane, was with Sumrall at the end of his tenure with Troy, and went to Tulane with him as a run game coordinator and as a linebackers coach. He coached linebackers. I would expect him to be on the staff at Florida. That's someone that knows, the Gator culture, what it means to be a Gator. And I know, fans really care about that and things of that sort. And, it'll be interesting to see how many of the guys at Sumrall, if he keeps anybody from the current staff that's on right now, and how many of the guys he grabbed from Tulane. So he's got a D coordinator from Kentucky. He's got the offensive coordinator from Georgia Tech. I saw he got another, what was it? He got another person from Tulane, not a coach, but someone on staff. Give me a second if I can find this. He got the director of football operations, Jeremiah Cartwright. So he is going from Tulane. He's going from Tulane to Florida. That happened within the last couple of hours. So we'll wait and see. But Sumrall has a game tonight, and I'm sure a lot of that's going to dictate how this is going to move forward. Because if you lose, I would assume he's going to coach the bowl game, and then that bowl game is probably going to be within the next 2 weeks, and then you can move on. If you win, got a shot to play for the college football playoff, and then you can, most people expect you to be a one and done. You're going to be an 11 or a 12 seed. You're going to play a Texas Tech, an Ole Miss, Oregon, whoever that 4, 5, 6 seed is. That's who they'll play, and then that'll be the season. He's going to coach his team, and then he'll move on to all his duties with the Florida Gators. We have pretty good games in college football tomorrow, and it feels like not a lot of people really care about what's going on. I mean, you have number 1 versus number 2, Ohio State versus Indiana, and it seems like nobody cares. Like, the build-up to it is not that big of a deal. Correct me if I'm wrong, replying to comments. By the way, I read all your comments. I might not respond live, but I do see your comments afterwards because I know that's when most people usually watch us. I mean, right now we have about 28 people live, and we appreciate you. We can get us on YouTube at Denmark and Marsh. Please continue to share that with your friends and family and whomever you think would like college football. But Ohio State, Indiana is number 1 versus number 2, and it's like people just aren't even. It's like it's whatever. Now, I mean, when you get there, when the game gets here tomorrow, people are going to be tuned in. But it's like this is what happens when you expand this to 12 teams in the playoff. You know that the winner's going to get the 1 seed, and then the loser is going to be at worst a 4 and get a first round bye. And that's kind of what I hate about this new college football. I knew that, you're going to expand it to 12 teams. And next year, it's going to expand it to 16 to maybe even 24. I'm surprised those details haven't come out yet. Those details are going to come out pretty soon because this will be the last year for the TV contract for the 12-team playoff. Next year, we're going to know pretty soon the details of the new playoff, how many teams get in, the format of it. Will it be only automatic qualifying bids? Will it be 4 teams in the SEC, 4 teams in the Big Ten, 2 in the ACC, 2 in the Big Ten, whatever, 1G5, whatever the case may be. We'll find that at a later date. But, Georgia's playing Alabama tomorrow. It was a great game earlier this year. Alabama wins. Now, it's a big game for Alabama. Georgia can lose, and it's like, whatever. You're not going to get a first-round bye if you lose. Bama, if you lose, barring them getting blown out, they're probably going to get in. I mean, the committee put them ahead of Notre Dame. Alabama squeaks by Auburn, and then Notre Dame beats a bad Stanford team. And they're like, okay, we're going to put them up 1 spot. And, just because we're going to give them a little bit of cushion to, if in case they lose, we can bump them down 1 for, whatever that's worth. I don't care for it. I personally, I'm just talking at the clouds at this point. I would like to see an 8-team playoff. I feel like 8 was the right number. That's not the case because money rules, and the more teams you have in the playoff, the more money that's going to be given to the SEC, to the Big Ten, to all the teams that are in those schools, and that's that because money is the winner at the end of the day. If it's 16 in mid-season would be considered playoffs. Yeah, I don't know. We'll wait and see. I just hate that in college football where the regular season is being diminished more and more, and you have conference championship tomorrow. You have BYU, Texas Tech, Alabama, Georgia, Indiana, Ohio State, and it's just like the games are kind of whatever. I wish, I miss the days where the SEC championship was one of the biggest games in the calendar. You stop what you're doing on that Saturday and you tune in. Like Kirby Smart had a quote the other day, and he's like, I mean, is this not that big of a game? This is the SEC championship. This is one of the biggest games of the year. This is what I grew up watching. It's like, yeah, Kirby, but this is not the same. It's not the same. This isn't Florida, Alabama 2008, 2009, where the winner goes on to play in the national title and the loser's playing in the Sugar Bowl. Like last year, Georgia played Texas, and minutes before the game, it was at half capacity. Right before the players ran out of the tunnel, because everyone knows that regardless of the outcome of the game, there's not that big of a consequence if you lose. So I do think Ohio State wins tomorrow. The spread's 4.5. I think Ohio State covers them. I have no idea what Indiana is, or Ohio State for that matter. I mean, Ohio State, I saw them play a game against Texas 100 years ago, week 1, when they played Arch Manning. And then I saw them play Michigan. Their defense seems really good, but I mean, people in the chat, we got quite a few people in right now. Name me 4 quarterbacks that Ohio State's played. Bryce Underwood. They didn't play Indiana, so they didn't play Mendoza. They played Arch Manning. They played Texas. Other than that, I can't tell you who they played. So, we'll see. And that's the thing with college football. There is no dominant team. It would not surprise me tomorrow if Alabama beats Georgia. I think Georgia does win tomorrow. They finally get the monkey off their back. I mean, we've been in the situation so many times where we think Georgia is the better team and Georgia should beat Alabama. And somehow, some way, Alabama outplays Georgia. When they played way back in week 3 or week 4 back in Athens, Alabama got all their scoring in the first half, and then they were shut out in the second half. And Georgia was, they weren't as good on offense. I feel like they're a little better now on offense than they were way back when. So we'll see. I expect, the first round buys are going to be on Selection Sunday. Ohio State, in no order, Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia if they win, which I think they will, and then Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech rolls BYU. And then the middle of the playoff, most of the teams that don't play, Oregon, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. I feel like I'm missing one more team. And then you get to the question of, okay, who's in and who's out? Miami, Notre Dame, BYU if they win. BYU wins, they're in. BYU loses, you think they're out. And I have a hard time believing if it's between BYU and Notre Dame and it's between the two and they have the same record, how they don't put Miami in. I know Miami's had 2 bad losses to SMU and to Louisville a couple weeks ago. Notre Dame has 2 prettier losses to A&M way back in the season, week 2, week 3 at home, and then to Miami. But this should not require rocket science. I don't need the committee on Selection Sunday to be like, all right, here's the board, and here's their strength of schedule, and here is the strength of their wins and the strength of their losses, and here how they're pretty. I don't care about that shit. I don't care about any of that. The 2 teams played on the field. They have the same record. The team that won head-to-head goes to the playoffs. This should not be that hard. I mean, think of any level of sports, how you handle tiebreakers. Okay, did they play? If the answer is yes, who won? Okay, they played. That team won. You move on. It don't matter if you're playing 6-year-old flag football. It doesn't matter if it's high school football or if you're in the NFL. I mean, if the tiebreaker comes down between the Bills and the Chiefs for a 7 seed in the AFC playoff picture, and they played each other, and both teams have the same record of 10-7 at the end of the year, the Bills are going to get in, and no one's going to complain. Be like, yeah, the Bills beat them way back in week 9, week 10, whatever it was, and no one's going to complain. But in college football, for some reason, we just have this stupid psyche in the committee of, well, we have to look at everything. We have to look at the body of work and how good has this team played down the stretch. And and everything that involves, and it's stupid. And one thing that gets kind of lost in a lot of this, most of the people in the committee are athletic directors. They are people that have full-time jobs that require them to do something for like 17 hours during the day. And then on Saturday, we expect them to watch 12 to 13 hours of college football on Saturday, like fans. That's just not realistic, which is a flaw of the committee. Remember last year when they showed the setup on Saturday of it was like 12 people like in their 70s. They all had gray hair and they're sitting in these chairs like they're getting ready for Thanksgiving, lunch and dinner, and they just have one TV set up. Graham and I had a better setup in college, and we couldn't afford a pot to piss in, and we had 3 TVs. We got this redneck to get to screw a couple screws in to the wall so we could put the TV and mount it up on the wall. And we had 3 TVs going on. We had the big TV for the big game, and then we had 2 smaller TVs for games that we were interested in, and and we could see everything. Do you think the committee's really doing that? I'd say no. And another thing, like a lot of it's buddy. If you're the Oklahoma AD, you want a team in the SEC to get in the playoff over a team that's in the ACC or the Big 12, and you're gonna argue that the SEC had a tougher strength of schedule, and there's just a lot of flaws. But college football is in a better place now than it was 10, 15 years ago. I mean, for so many reasons. I mean, I know when we talk about college football in the sport, the only thing we talk about are its flaws and how wrong everything is, and no one ever gives you a solution. I'm not that person. I don't talk about problems and I just go on and complain without offering a solution. Usually. But I mean, we saw the ratings for Ohio State, Michigan. I go on talking about how meaningless it is. Like Ohio State didn't really mean anything. They could have lost to someone in the playoff. They win in a convincing fashion. They're still a 1 seed, and 18 million people watched that game at high noon last Saturday. That's almost double than what Game 7 of the NBA Finals had, and that had a better rating than what Game 1 through 6 of the World Series just got between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. So, for all the flaws that, college football has, people are still watching the hell out of the sport. On Black Friday, Texas A&M, Georgia Tech, and what was the other game on Black Friday? The Egg Bowl, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. All those games got over 10 million people to watch, and that's pretty good. That's really good. I mean, college football by far and away is the second biggest sport in the country, and no one really, it does not get covered like it's the second biggest sport in the country because it's buried behind the NFL, which is by far and away number 1. No doubt college football has lost the magic of every game matters. Whether it's different, sadly not the same. Not to mention they have, the committees have their agenda, and it is what it is, and hopefully it gets changed. Hopefully, I would want in the new playoff that comes out when they drop the TV contracts and all that, to get better structure and for it to be more solidified. Having 4 teams in the SEC, 4 teams in the Big Ten, just so you know what you have before you go into the season, because it's having a committee. We've seen this for over 10 years, and I think for most of the part, the committee's gotten it right. Leaving Florida State out a couple of years ago, putting Alabama in was the right call. Alabama took Michigan to overtime, and if it's not for a bad snap in overtime, Alabama probably beats Michigan, and they're playing in the national title game. Instead, it was Michigan that went on to play in the national title, and they ended up winning it all. Or even, 10 years ago when Ohio State, TCU, Baylor, Ohio State gets in because they won their Big Ten title game by like 59 or whatever it was, and everyone was in hoopla that it should have been BYU or TCU. Ohio State went on to win the national title. So most of the time they get it right, but I think the sport of college football is better when you have a solidified – when teams know going into the season, this is what I have to do, and as you go down the stretch, this is what I have to do to get to the playoff. Like this year, like it was incredibly flawed. Somehow in the ACC, it felt like none of the top teams played each other. In the SEC, Texas A&M did not play Ole Miss, did not play Georgia, did not play Alabama. Georgia played Ole Miss, played Alabama, not Texas A&M, not Oklahoma. I hate how schedules are made so many years in advance to where you don't know what you have. Like in the NFL, like I used to work with somebody, Terry Norvell. He's like, you got to have this scheduled so because there's a lot of the transportation and planning, yada yada yada. It's like, okay, the NFL, they know their opponents, and they don't put out the schedule until like March. Why can't college football do something like that? Why can't college football, okay, have your non-conference, have that scheduled. That's fine. Have that a couple of years in advance. Like Florida's scheduled to play Colorado in the future. Whenever they want to play Miami again in the future, that's in a contract. But know who your conference schedule is. Play teams that are of your sort, because it's ridiculous how you're playing teams where, like Indiana, for example. Indiana did not play Ohio State, and I have no idea how good Indiana is because of the schedule they played. So hopefully that gets rectified and gets fixed. But hopefully, I don't know. I'm just yelling at the clouds at this point. Like and subscribe to the channel. I might do a reaction show to everything that happened in college football tomorrow, even though there's no Gators. As always, I'm Dylan Denmark. Follow me on Twitter at 1010XL Denmark. Get me on YouTube, Denmark and Marsh. Graham is working that 9 to 5. He's a corporate sellout. He claims that he has to get money, and I work for 1010XL. I'll be in later tonight, doing all the afternoon shows with Frank Frangie, Rick Ballou, and Ryan the Hacker Green. Hope everybody has a good weekend, and we will see you tomorrow.